Forget the radio hits, music fans. Today on Rock Resurgence Radio, we're diving deep into the world of underdogs and underground sensations. We're talking about bands you might not know, but should. Get ready to discover your new favorite artist, or maybe rekindle a love for a forgotten classic. Let's turn up the volume on the hidden gems. Hello and welcome to Rock Resurgence Radio. My name is Chad. I got with me my good friend Bergie. We are going to do an episode right now about bands that maybe a little less known, hidden gem, kind of that type of feel. And we each came up with 5. So we're going to bring that to you right now. We'll talk a little bit about each band. Not a big in-depth thing, but we're going to start it off with that, and I'm going to let Mr. Bergie go first with his first band, and then we'll go to mine, and then we'll go back to him. So in that order is what we'll do it.
I'm going to start it off,
Okay.
But I want to say we each had, I think I had 19, Chad had over 30, and we narrowed this list down to 5. So there's a bunch more in the comments if the watchers could put some of their hidden gems for us to discover too.
Absolutely.
Or for other listeners to discover.
Yes, for sure. I'm always wanting to hear about new, undiscovered things that I don't already know, and I know there's a ton out there. So if you have a hidden gem that you think we should check out, maybe you want us to do a review on it, we can do that too. So yeah, absolutely. There's a link to my email, and I will put a link to Chris's email in there as well. So you can email either one of us, and we will get it, and we will discuss it, and hopefully plan on a future episode.
Yeah, so lost gems, hidden gems, bands that should have been bigger, in our opinions. I think I'm not sure 100% about Chad's list or even mine. Some of these bands are still around, some of them are not. We could do a whole episode on newer music that I would consider a hidden gem, like something that came out in the 2000s, but most of these came out right around, for me, that time when hair bands were still big, or maybe that genre of music was kind of dying out for a little bit. I think it did. We had this discussion once before about grunge killing the hair bands or whatever.
Right.
But the grunge to me only lasted a few years, and then people did kind of go back to this, or at least I did for sure. Maybe not the mainstream people. But anyway, my first band is a band called Sweet F.A. Sweet, F as in a letter, period, A as in a letter, period. Were they awesome? In my opinion, you bet your sweet F.A. So now you kind of get an idea where that comes from. And they're not to be confused with the Sweet, or Sweet that some people call them. Or there's an album by an English rock band, Love and Rockets, called Sweet F.A. But they're kind of a blues-ish, southern rock-ish, sleaze-ish. To me, the singer has a little deeper, raspy type voice, so not maybe a typical hair band sounding singer. They were formed in 1988. They're from Indiana. I'm going to read this bio from their website. I'm going to talk about their website just briefly. They have a website called sweetfarocks.com. Not a ton of stuff on there, but I'm going to circle back to that with some stuff. There is some news within the last couple of years on this band. But so this is reading directly from their website. Sweet F.A. began in Speedway, Indianapolis, Indiana, with a guitar player Brent Barker and a singer Steve DeLong, seeking a drummer and bassist for an original rock and roll band. Nick Tricky Lane answered the call for the drummer, and Jim Quiggins was recruited from Kentucky to fill the bass duties. Shortly after recording the band's first demo, Brent Barker left the band for other pursuits. John Huffman of Louisville assumed guitar duties for Sweet F.A., and James J.T. Thorpe was added to the lineup a short time later. With the lineup set, the band kept a rigorous rehearsal and writing regimen that ultimately led to signing with MCA Records a short time, months after forming. Today, Brent has rejoined Jim, Nick, John, and singer Patrick Stone to form the 21st century version of Sweet F.A. So, not the original singer, but they did kind of reform recently.
Cool.
It looked like there was some stuff from 2022, 2023 maybe it's kind of petered out. But check out their website. You'll see for yourself. The original lineup from the first album, I'm going to talk about their 2 albums, and then I'm going to give you some, favorites from each one for me. Maybe a little trivia in here, but the original lineup from the first album was Steve DeLonge on vocals, Nick Tricky Lane, so Tricky Lane on drums. I swear on the album it said Jim Quick, but that's Jim Quiggins on bass, John Huffman guitar, and James J.T. Thorpe on guitar as well. Comically, here's a little bit of trivia. In very 80s fashion, the guitar duo of Thorpe and Huffman were known as Thunder and Lightning. If that sounds very 80s to you,
yeah,
it does to me.
Yep.
So there are 2 albums, and there's more. There's actually a third one called The Last Tapes. Well, but I'm going to start with 1990. An album came out called Stick to Your Guns. There's a song on the album called Stick to Your Guns too, not to be confused with, I think there's a Bon Jovi song called Stick to Your Guns. Maybe it's just the lyric in a Bon Jovi song, but song list from their 1990 debut, Stick to Your Guns. Prince of the City opens the album, Nothing for Nothing, Rhythm of Action, Do a Little Driving, Daily Grind, Stick to Your Guns, Whiskey River, I Love Women, Breaking the Law, Heart of Gold, Devil's Road, and it ends with Southern Comfort. And then they put out an album in 1991 called Temptation, a great second release, a much lesser known album. I think there's a story in here where the label MCA that they put out their original on dropped them. I don't remember the story, but this was on like a lesser known label. Songs on Temptation: Bad Boy, Temptation, Sexuality, a song called Your Love, not the Outfield version, but totally different song, ballad. Storm is Moving In, Vices, Please Oh Please, Paralyzed by You, Liquid Emotion, 1800, To Kill You Sunrise, Indiana Heart, Reckless, and then a cover. And I doing some research for this episode, I Mama Told Me Not to Come. That song was originally written in 1966 by Randy Newman. So Randy Newman, the songwriter who did the song for Toy Story. He did I Love L.A. back in the day.
I recognize the name, but that's why I got a confused look on my face. I'm like, I know that name from somewhere.
He wrote it for a guy named Eric Burden, who was previously the lead singer for the Animals. So this is back in the 60s. Yeah. And then that song was made famous by Three Dog Night.
Okay.
So that's the song, Mama Told Me Not to Come, from Three Dog Night. I just did want to read this. I found on Wikipedia about Newman says that the song was inspired by his... So I'm thinking something else when I hear Mama Told Me Not to Come. Maybe I'm thinking a little dirtier than most people would be thinking. I think
you are.
But Newman says the song was inspired by his own lighthearted reflection of the Los Angeles music scene of the late 60s. As with most Newman songs, he assumes a character. In this song, the narrator is a sheltered and extraordinarily straight-laced young man who recounts what is presumably his first wild party in the big city, is shocked and appalled by marijuana smoking, whiskey drinking, and loud music, and in the chorus of the songs recalls that his mama told him not to come to the party.
Right.
So, but just that little tidbit, marijuana, whiskey drinking, loud music. Fits in the...
My question is, what the hell's Mama doing there?
Yeah. Why did she know?
Yeah.
And then they had a release, like I said, called The Lost Tapes. I have all 3. I'm only going to talk about their first 2 in much depth. And then we're going to move on to Chad's first one. But Stick to Your Guns, awesome album. I got a quick story about it. And I'm going to put a pop-up on the screen of this. But it came out in 1990. So I was in the Navy from October of 90 to October of 92. So a couple of years active. I was in longer in the inactive reserves. But anyway, I think I'm coming home from, it might have been boot camp, and I fly into Minneapolis, and I have I think the connecting flight got canceled, and I had to stay overnight. Well, my cousin Randy lived in Minneapolis at that time. He was a guitar player in a band called TK Rocks. You know my cousin Robbie?
Yep.
It's his older,
I know
one of
PK
his,
Rocks.
yeah, one of his older brothers. So I stayed at his apartment that night, and we were talking about music, and I brought up this. So it was probably just coming out of boot camp, late 1990, and I had this cassette with me, you know, on my Walkman or whatever. And I'm like, hey, do you have this? This is great. Give it a listen. And so he goes back into his back room and he pulls out this thing, which I'm going to show on the screen. But it's a box set that was like a promo thing, and I found a picture of it on the internet so I can post it. But it's a tin, like a circular tin, and it's got the CD in there, a couple other goodies, and then it's got a cassette tape in there too. And I'd say it's about this thick and perfectly round, like the size of a CD. But so I had that, and I have it somewhere. He gave it to me, so I thank you for that.
What is
Randy. It's the album.
Oh, really?
Stick to your guns. Yeah, I don't know.
So he had it, but he had like a special version of it.
Yeah, like a promo version he got from a record producer buddy or something that he was kind of still in the music business then.
That's pretty doggone cool.
It was really cool, but
yeah.
So on that album, some highlights: Rhythm of Action. I think there's a video for that song. I'm not sure. I don't know if Chad's. Are you pretty familiar with this band?
No, I'm not. I can't even say that I've heard them. I've heard of them, but I don't think I've ever downloaded or anything that is on Apple Music.
I don't know. It is on my Apple Music because
you ripped it.
Uploaded it.
Yeah, uploaded it.
iTunes Match, I think, is what they called it back in the day.
Yeah.
You could put your music on and they would upload it into the cloud, so it's there. Hopefully it's there forever, but if not, I do still have both of these CDs, like copies of these CDs. But
right.
So Rhythm of Action, great song. Do a Little Driving. That song, there's an awesome groove to that song. Do a Little Driving, it's kind of a really good driving song, but I just want to read a fun lyric out of that song. Sweet little Mary, she's tied to a mean old man. She cooks his food and cleans his house and takes out the garbage can. He comes home so late at night and passes out in front of the television. Now, sweet little Mary, she's looking for a marital division. I just think that's a fun lyric.
Yeah.
And the song just has a beat to it. It kicks. But
yeah.
Another song on there called Heart of Gold. I think it's one of the best ballads that probably nobody's ever heard of. Great sing-along chorus. If you get a chance, check it out for sure. Stick to Your Guns is another ballady type song. It's kind of a song about a father talking to his boy, and the trials and tribulations of life, and in the end, you just got to stick to your guns and do what's right, do what you feel, whatever.
Yep.
Daily Grind has a really raunchy hook, crunchy guitar riff. So those are my 5 songs. I did just briefly name all the songs. There's other good songs on there. If you go to that website, sweetfarocks.com, there's a video of them playing Whiskey River live, which is on that album. Southern Comfort It Ends With is kind of a ballady song. We're going to try to make this not another 2-hour episode, so I'm going to kind of move on to their second album, Temptation, just go over a few of the highlights for me for that. There's a song called Your Love, not the Outfield song as I previously mentioned, but it's another kick-ass ballad. A really cool song that's something to me that it's out of the ordinary from what you normally would hear on a hair band album, called Liquid Emotion. I don't know how to describe it. I wish I could play it for y'all, but go and check it out. Of course, the Mama Told Me Not to Come. Really great rendition of that song. Again, I said it was made famous kind of by Three Dog Night. That's probably the version that most people know. But I think when I looked that song up, there's many, many different versions of that song.
Never heard it before, so.
Their version of it reminds me a lot of Faster Pussycat for some reason. So if you like Faster Pussycat, check that song out. And then talking about a great driving song, there's a song called Indiana Heart. The boys here were formed in Indiana, so it makes sense they have a song called Indiana Heart. Great road trip song, especially through the state of Indiana, I suppose. But if you get a chance to check it out, you'll see what I mean. And maybe for me, it's just a great driving song because I remember this album coming out in 91. So going back to the Navy thing, the boot camp, I stopped at my cousin's place and stayed overnight and talked about this album. When I got out of the Navy and I'm driving home, I remember listening to this album and thinking, oh, this is a great driving song. One last thing about Sweet FA, and then I'm going to let Chad have his turn. I'm going to sit back and shut up. On their website, Sweet FA Rocks, there's a little quick tidbit called Sweet FA Rocks again. In July of 2022, so this is only a year and a half, 2 years ago, Jim Quiggins asked Tricky, the drummer, to join him as a sub for a gig at the Whiskey in Hollywood. The one-off gig was a success, and the pair had such a good time playing together again that they began discussing how they could do more of it. Those conversations led to the decision to reboot Sweet FA, so awesome news. Jim and Nick began calling the other three members to gauge interest and devise a plan. John Huffman, guitar, immediately jumped on board. Unfortunately, Steve, vocals, and JT, guitar, were neither in a position to participate. No drama, just life. As luck would have it, Nick had been in touch with Sweet FA's original guitarist, Brent Barker, who was excited to take on his former role. Offers for shows began rolling in almost as fast as the band came together, and the band played the first Sweet FA show in 15 years at Rocktember in Hinckley, Minnesota on September 9th, 2022. So
The year before.
before you went, yeah. With Patrick Stone, I guess he was in a band called Butterside and Sweet on lead vocals. So give them a listen if you can. I don't think Temptation is available on Apple Music, but I do think the other one is, the
first one.
Stick to Your Guns.
Yep.
But if you can find Temptation, you might find it on Amazon for $10. Pick it up.
Very good. You did a lot more than I am going to do.
Okay.
Just throwing that out
Well,
there.
and to be fair, when I started taking my notes, I took a lot of notes on Sweet FA. As I move on down to my final band, I'll probably get less long-winded. So
that's all right. I don't care.
No worries.
Band I am going to talk about for my first kind of forgotten gem or just missed the time window is a band called DAD. And DAD, as I come to start to research, has a ton of albums, like 15 albums. They started in the early 80s in Copenhagen. They played together under the original name of Disneyland After Dark. So that's what that stands for. But since they decided to discard that because they thought there'd be some lawsuits from Disneyland, I imagine there probably would have been. They released their first album, and I didn't know this because I thought the album that I got into them on was their first album, but there was two before that. They released an album called Call of the Wild in 1986, but their breakthrough came in 1989 on the album that I am familiar with, which is called No Fuel Left for the Pilgrims. And their single off of that was called Sleeping My Day Away, and that's the song that I heard first from these guys. And it's a really cool, they kind of have almost, sorry for the noise, they almost have like a, for lack of a better, they have kind of an AC/DC kind of feel because they got, none of their songs are real intricate. They're toe tappers. They're the 3/4 chord rock guitar stuff. And then he plays this, it's a semi-hollow guitar. And it makes this really cool lead sound that it's very prominent in several of their songs, and if you watch the video, he's playing that, and it's just a really neat added sound to the song. It just, you hadn't heard it before, and those of you who know anything about guitar, semi-hollow guitar has a way different sound. It's kind of a cross between an acoustic and electric, but it just has this sound, and it's on Sleeping My Day Away and several other songs on the album, but really, really kind of cool sounding. Um, so like I said, No Fuel Left for the Pilgrims. That was the one that they had another one that came out before it called Draws a Circle in 87. But I didn't hear either of those two. And honestly, after the two that I'm going to talk about, I didn't really listen to a lot of these ones that come out. I've heard songs off of these albums because uh, Apple Music suggests these to me, and I have since picked up these albums and just haven't gone through them all yet. The next album is called Risking It All. That was released in 1991, which we all know is the kind of beginning of the end for these bands. And I just want to go over a few songs on their albums because they are really, really catchy. Like, there's a lot of really good songs. So, Sleeping My Day Away, excellent. Jihad, excellent. Point of View, excellent. Rim of Hell, really good. And then it goes ZCMI. That one's okay. True Believer. I think that one's pretty good. Girl Nation at number 7 is excellent. Lords of the Atlas is excellent. Overmuch is okay. Siamese Twin is pretty good. I can't think of Wild Talk, and it finishes out on number 12 with I Will. Ill Will. So that album, really, really good. If you haven't heard it, pick that album up. The other one that I'll talk about is Risking It All, because it's the really only other one that I've had a lot of time with. And it starts off with a song called Bad Craziness, which is really good. D-Law, Day of Wrong Moves is a really cool song. Rockin' Rock Radar is actually a good song. I Won't Cut My Hair. It's not that great. Down the Dusty Third World Road is okay. Making Fun of Money is a really good song. Grower Pay, I can't remember that one. Smart Boy, can't remember that one. Risking It All is really good. And Laughing, I don't know that one either. But they're still doing stuff. I think the last release that they've released is called A Prayer for the Loud, which came out in 2019. But I think they're still doing stuff out there. And there's a song called off of Prayer for the Loud. The title song, A Prayer for the Loud, is really cool. And then there's Nothing Ever Changes is really good too. I did get a chance to listen to that album, and they, from 89 to 19, which would be how many years? 30 years?
Yep.
They sound the same. Their music sounds the same. They still have the Gretsch guitar, semi-hollow guitar, and he plays it on some of the songs. So they're still rocking out, after all those years. And I wouldn't surprise me if they come out with something soon. But it's unbelievable. I didn't know all this stuff. Like, they had an album in 95, 97, 2000, 2002, 2005, 2008, 2011. And then they took a while and they came out in 2019. So, yeah, they had some time in between albums on that last one. But I think, from what I read, they're still kind of doing their thing. And I hope, that maybe someday I'll get to see them live, because they sound like they'd be really fun live, because it's just that toe tapping music that good driving music. It's got a good beat and kind of makes you stomp your foot or bob your head or whatever. So DAD, Disneyland After Dark, is my first hidden gem.
Good pick.
Yeah, and I apologize for I just thought it'd be easier to print them off than to look at.
I learned a bunch there. I had no idea.
Yeah.
I know the song Sleeping My Day Away.
Yeah.
Great tune.
No, it's good.
Yeah.
I know, right?
Just the lyrics in the song make me laugh a little bit, and just the song is just awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. They're a good band.
So my second band, you're all done with
I'm
DAD?
all done.
Perfect.
DAD, yep.
I'm going to talk about a band called Eyes. I'm going to read first from, this is from, they're hard to find anything on like Wikipedia or whatever, because you Google Eyes, all kinds of things come up.
Yeah.
And there's actually another band, I think, called Eyes, but this is the band that was formed in Los Angeles, California. This is from Discogs.com. Was formed under the name of LA Rocks in 1986. The band changed its name to Eyes in 1988, not to be confused with Eyes from New Haven. Although James Christian was a vocalist in both bands. The band changed the vocalist several times in the early days when it was still called LA Rocks. You might recognize some of these names: Jizzy Pearl, Mark Bowles, Paramore McCarty, Mark Weitz, Rob Lamotte, Jeff Scott Soto, and James Christian. Jeff Scott Soto is the guy on the two albums I'm going to talk about, or one album I'm really going to talk about.
Yeah, I didn't know. Do they have a second album?
They do. I'll get to that at the end, but yeah, they did, and he either quit the band or got fired because he didn't want them released, the second album.
That's Soto?
Yeah.
Okay.
All sang for the band, so Jeff Scott Soto, James Christian, all sang for this band short period between 86 and 88. At last, Jeff Scott Soto returned to the band in 88 when it was already called Eyes. Eyes recorded an impressive demo tape in 89 that also found X-Rat and Rough Cut bassist Mark Thor involved. Keyboards at that point were courtesy of former Berlin man Todd Jasmine. Fronted by Soto, Eyes signed to Curb Records, a label normally associated with country music, after originally recording an album's worth of material for Capitol. The band's debut album was released, though, in 1990, and was first to feature an album recording of the LA Rocks classic Nobody Said It Was Easy, a number that must have been recorded by every singer who has ever rehearsed for that. I'm going to skip through some of this stuff here and just kind of move on. I'll try to keep this a little more brief. I got a bunch of notes on that, a couple of things I want to touch on. Jeff Scott Soto, I Googled him, and he well over 100 albums he sings on. Like,
he's the one on the one I know, right? With Calling All Girls and all that.
Yep.
He's got a great voice.
Yes, great, amazing voice, honestly, in my opinion. He may be most famous for these two things I'm going to talk about. Yngwie Malmsteen's Rising Force album. This guy, he was born in 65, so he's only 58, 59 years old. So, but his first recording was in 1982, so that put him at 17 years old. So he's been singing for his entire life, from 16 all the way through 58, 59, whatever he is. But you know that movie Rockstar with Mark Wahlberg, Steel Dragon, Stand Up and Shout? That's Jeff Scott Soto.
Really?
Yep.
I always thought it was a guy from Steelheart.
Well, the guy from Steelheart is on there too. So both of those guys are on that, as singers for
Say his name.
Steel Dragon. I cannot say his name. Milo Michael whatever.
Yeah.
Dad wanted me to do that. So I'm going to talk about Eyes album, self-titled Eyes, 1990. Go over the track listing briefly. Calling All Girls.
Oh, yeah.
Every Single Minute. Don't Turn Around. Misdemeanor, as in MISS, demeanor, like a person's name. Not like a misdemeanor or a felony, but kind of a play on words. Fifth track's called Young and Innocent, Walk and Fire, Wired for Love, Nobody Said It Was Easy. We mentioned a minute ago a song called Can't Get Enough, and Start Living is how the album ends, according to when I Googled it. But on the album I have, there's an 11th song called Somebody to Love. It's not Queen song Somebody to Love. It's an original song, as far as I know. At least I think it's an original song that they did, and it's just sort of an a cappella type song. I guess you could call it a ballad. Highlights for me, well, I want to go back and just say I literally could have read this review that I found online of this album. It's on a website called tooloudtooOldmusic.com. The number 2 loud, the number 2 again, oldmusic.com. You know, the 2s and 4s and song titles was a very 80s thing. A big Prince thing for sure. Matter of fact, I'm going to read some lyrics from one of the songs coming up, and that's how they're written, with the number 4 for the word for. Anyway, for me, the big choruses, the backing vocals, these are highlights. Gang vocals that make you want to sing along. Every song, Calling All Girls, it's how it starts out. It's a wonderful melodic arena type rock anthem. It's not very politically correct. Probably wouldn't sit too well with the Me Too movement or whatever back a few years ago. But it's sex, drugs, rock and roll. He's singing about girls, like all girls of the world. Like that's one of the lyrics in the song. But it opens up with a great guitar riff, and then the singer speaking the words "rock it up." Rock it up. That's such an 80s thing to say or whatever, but this came out in 1990. The next song on there is called Every Single Minute. Wonderful, catchy, melodic chorus, fun lyrics, makes you want to sing along again. I'm going to say that a lot. There's some quick, the chorus is every single minute, you know that I'm looking for a lover. Every single minute, I'm looking for the lover in you, looking for the lover in me. Anyway, Don't Turn Around is a ballad. People will know this song from a few years later. Actually, when I heard that song, what I'm going to talk about in a second, I was like, they stole that from my band Eyes. Well, it turns out the song was actually written for Tina Turner back in like 1986 by a guy named Albert Hammond and Diane Warren. I think people who know songwriting might recognize that Diane Warren name, but it was covered in '94 by a Swedish pop group, Ace of Base.
That's where I heard it.
Yeah, but I's version is much better in my opinion.
I agree, but when I heard it, I was like, hey, that's a copy of the Ace of Base song.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so but looking back, that came out in '94. I had to Google it because I wanted to make sure it wasn't I's. Hey, that's a cool song, let's cover it. Yeah. They actually were covering the Tina Turner song. Ace of Base is probably covering the Tina Turner song too. Probably had no idea who Eyes was.
So
because they're kind of a hidden gem.
Right.
Walking Fire is another highlight. Has a lyric hotter than a summer night. Just can't pick a few highlights. I think every song is great. Nobody Said It Was Easy is a ballad that just wails to me. Maybe last couple of songs, Can't Get Enough, not to be confused with The Winger, or I'm sure there's other hair metal songs with that title or lyric.
Yep.
Start Living. I'd written here that I just listened to this album this morning in the shower. That I wrote that they're not quite as catchy as the rest, but solid listen 1 through 11 in the case of my version that has 11 songs. There's also an album called Windows of the Soul that came out in '93, but it's super hard to find, and it's just full of demos and a few of the same songs. I did find a copy of it on eBay for $60 if anybody's interested. Also, if you search it on YouTube, you can listen to the full album on YouTube. So I might do that someday, but I haven't yet. So that's my second band, Eyes. I'll turn it back over to Chad.
I'm just kind of curious if it shows up in Apple Music just for... No. Okay, moving on. My second band is Babylon A.D. They're an American hard rock band. They were formed in 1987. They hail from the San Francisco Bay Area. In 1989, they caught the attention of Arista Records and music mogul Clive Davis, who signed them at a live showcase in Los Angeles. Their first band lineup was Derek Davis on vocals, guitarist Danny De La Rosa, and Ron Freschi, drummer Jamie Pacheco, and bassist Rob Reed. Okay, their debut album was released in 1989, and it had the songs Bang Go the Bells, Hammer Swings Down, and The Kid Goes Wild. All really great songs. And I'm just going to pull up, see what else I got on them. Caught Up in the Crossfires, excellent. Kid Goes Wild. I mean, the more I listen to these guys, the more I like them. And I really liked them back in the day when I first heard them. I really liked Bang Go the Bells has a really cool guitar part. And I learned how to play that. And I was like, damn, that's really cool. I like the way that flows. And it just had a really good beat and all around good song. And then they came out with Nothing Sacred in 1992. I had two singles, Bad Blood and So Savage the Heart. And another solid album. There's a lot of other good songs on there besides those two. I can't remember them off the top of my head for some reason, but I've listened to this album many times, but it's just not jumping out at me. And that's kind of where they kind of left off. And then they didn't release another album until like I think it was in 2000. And next release was American Blitzkrieg in 2000. And I haven't listened to that one yet. I'm going to. I'm more familiar with one that came out a little later. It's called Revelation Highway, which is really good. They played in the 2015 Monster Rock Cool along with Bay Area favorites Y&T Tesla and Night Rangers. So yeah, there's the one I talked about, Babylon, just self-titled, Nothing Sacred, American Blitzkrieg, and then Revelation Highway came out in 2017. And I liked them. I like all their stuff. They just got a really good sound, good guitar, good singer. There's another band that it's kind of weird that makes you think of another band. There's another band called Asphalt Ballet. They were on my hidden gems too. I don't know if you ever heard them, but they kind of have the similar kind of sound. And but Babylon AD, if you hadn't heard of them, they're worth a listen. So I think they have 4 albums. I didn't go into deep detail on these guys, but just know that the first 2 albums, Nothing Sacred and the self-titled, and then Revelation Highway, I've listened to a bit, but I haven't listened to the other one, the Blitzkrieg, American Blitzkrieg. Those 3 albums, and they're really good. And they're another one that I think if they had come out a little earlier instead of 89 right at the end, I think they would have definitely been a lot bigger than they did get to be. So yeah, I think you should give them. I mean, shoot, if Clive Davis listened to them and liked them, they got to be something good, because he's a big time producer and he signed them. So Babylon AD, check them out. They are worth your listen.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So my third band is a band called South Gang, and they had a hit, somewhat of a hit. This is for sure falls in the category of they came around a little too late. Their first album came out in 91, second album in 92. And that's pretty much it for them as far as albums. There are those 2 albums, but their guitar player ended up becoming much more famous for other music that he did or other bands that he worked with, not stuff that's in my wheelhouse. But I'm going to read. So they're originally based in Atlanta, Georgia. They have a song called Georgia Lights, which I'll talk about just briefly. But from the Wikipedia page, South Gang was a Los Angeles-based rock band, again, originally based in Atlanta. Composed of lead vocalist Jesse Hart, guitarist Butch Walker, bassist J.C. Fincher, and drummer Mitch "Slug" McClee. Active in the late 80s and early 90s, this band's original name was Bite the Bullet, B-Y-T-E, The Bullet, which was changed to Southgang before they released their first album, Tainted Angel. They had a similar style to many of the other hair bands of the era. Band is best remembered for the 1991 single, Tainted Angel, which received some MTV airplay, especially during Headbangers Ball. Tainted Angel was produced by Howard Benson and Desmond Child. Those are names that are going to be familiar to people that bought music in the 80s for sure. After the band's breakup in the mid-90s, Butch Walker, J.C. Fincher, and Mitch McClee, so all three members of the band, and I looked forever to find music that they did because I figured I would like it a lot. So all three members of the band, besides the singer, Jesse Hart, which I'm going to just say this right now, in 2020, there's an album that he put out full of demos. It's decent. It's got like 20 songs on it. Most of them are Southgang stuff. Some Bite the Bullet stuff on there that that they were named before they changed their name. Going on, anyway. Sorry. Butch Walker, J.C. Fincher, Mitch McClee went on to form power pop band Marvelous 3. I bought this album, listened to it. It's not necessarily my kind of music, but they scored a minor hit with a song called Freak of the Week in 1998. Some younger people will know that song for sure. More recently, Butch Walker has had a successful solo music career as well as written and produced hits for many of today's pop and rock artists such as Fall Out Boy, Panic at the Disco, and Bowling for Soup. Jesse Hart, it says here, is currently residing in the Atlanta area working in the cell phone industry. Released an EP in 2012 with a project called Red Bloody Hearts. Didn't know that. I knew about the 2021. I didn't find that on here. I came across it from a website that I subscribe to or frequent. Mitch McClee, it says, is still playing drums in Atlanta, Georgia. So band members Jesse Hart, Butch Walker, J.C. Fincher, Mitch McClee, drums. Fincher the bass, Butch Walker guitars, and Jesse Hart was the vocalist. Two studio albums I'm going to talk about are Tainted Angel, came out in 91, and Group Therapy in 92. They also had a live album, singles Love Ain't Enough, Love for Sale, Tainted Angel, Fire in Your Body on Group Therapy, and Tug of War from Group Therapy. So it maybe shouldn't have fallen into hidden gems, but they definitely fall to me in that category if they had came out earlier. The songs are super catchy. The album Tainted Angel starts out with a song called Boys Night Out. Great hanging out with your boys type song. Road trip, booze cruise, whatever you want to call it. Tainted Angel, of course, was the single from MTV, and I suppose you could call it a hit. A couple of ballads on there, Love Ain't Enough and Aim for the Heart, great. The song Georgia Lights is awesome. But again, 1 through 11, it ends with a little instrumental called Groove Bucket. But so 1 through 10 just jams all the way around. Their second album, not quite as popular, still pretty good. This is another one I listened to driving home from getting out of the Navy in 92. The song starts with a song called White Trash with Cash. That song is probably alluding to the fact that they had some hits in 91 and maybe had a little bit of cash from that. Water Under the Bridge, there's a song on there called Fire in Your Body, which is really good. And there's one towards the end of the album called Ode to Peggy's, which, no surprise, is a fun party type song about a strip club called Peggy's, I guess. So, What else? Sex, drugs, rock and roll. Not a lot of drugs on this song, but a lot of rock and roll in my opinion. And that's a band that should have been bigger. Hidden gem, Southgang.
Good pick. I too like Southgang. They were on my hidden gems list. Matter of fact, I got the CD sitting over here because they were a backup kind of in case we had
some. We didn't pick the same vibe, so that's great.
That's crazy, right? The next band I'm going to talk about is called Dirty Looks. They're an American hard rock band from Erie, Pennsylvania. They're originally from the Erie, Pennsylvania cover band Crossfire. The Danish-born vocalist, guitarist Henrik Ostergaard, and fellow Crossfire bandmate bassist Jimmy Chartley traveled to San Francisco to form Dirty Looks in 1984. Yeah, they had released an EP and 3 independent albums before Atlantic Records offered them a recording contract. For their major label, Dirty Looks consisted of Paul Lydell, guitar, Jack Pyers, bass, Gene Barrett, drums, and Henrik Ostergaard. The resulting album, Cool from the Wire, came out in 1988. It entered the Billboard chart while gaining substantial airplay on MTV for the video for the song Oh Ruby. Then they did come out with another album in 1989 called Turn of the Screw. It sounds like they had, I did some reading in it, they had a producer that they didn't really get along with. He ended up getting, his name was Bo Hill, and they didn't get along with him, and the Hill sessions were completely scrapped, and then John Jansen was brought in to produce the album, which they released in 1989. And then they came out with a thing in 1991 called Bootlegs. The group broke up, and you'll get a kick out of this, and I knew about this. The group broke up in 1993 following the release of 5 Easy Pieces, which is another album with Ostergaard. And Ostergaard formed a band called Rumble Dog, and I had this album, and it sounded just like Dirty Looks, so it was kind of weird. But it had, with Brian Perry of Dirty Looks, it had Robin Crosby of Rat and Paul Monroe of XYZ. And Liddell went on to do some stuff with Dangerous Toys and Broken Teeth. And then the bassist Brian Perry resurfacing in Flood, Jakey Lee's Wicked Alliance, Prong, and Rhino Bucket.
Cool.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. Yeah,
I know about Rumble Dog.
Yeah,
you said Bo Hill. That was another name. Like you looking at your cassettes back in the day, produced by Bo Hill. Or you see that on a lot.
For some reason, they just didn't get along, and his version of the album got scrapped, and they went on and recorded. They did. Ostergaard did start recording under the Dirty Looks moniker again in 1994, and they released an album called Chewing on the Bit. And then he worked with Rumble Dog again in 1995, and you're gonna freak out when I'm gonna show you the members who have been in this band. It's unbelievable. Yeah. It's 2 pages long.
Yeah.
I mean, so it was like a revolving door of people coming in and out of the band Dirty Looks. And I had no idea about this until I started reading this. I'm like, holy cow. And they released, I mean, you talk about people who, this is kind of way off the subject, but people who just constantly write songs. Like, so when Tupac got killed back in 1996, after he died, there was like 4 or 5 albums released because he had written so much stuff, right?
Right.
That sounds like the case with these guys, like, because they're releasing 1 and 2 albums every year. And I'll get to that. It's just unreal. Ostergaard did did retire from the music industry to focus on family life in 1996. And then with changing climate, Ostergaard nearly died from alcohol poisoning at one point also. And according to their MySpace page, Dirty Looks reformed in 2007 and released a new album, Gasoline. 2 more studio albums were released in 2008 called Super Deluxe and California Free Ride. In 2009, they signed with a Nashville, Tennessee-based label, F&A Records. In February of 2010, the bassist was stabbed to death in a bar brawl. And then Henrik Ostergaard died at the age of 47 on January 7th, 2011. He died from liver failure from being a severe alcoholic for most of his life. And then they ended up in 2019 getting the singer from Dangerous Toys. And they were just Jason McMaster. They were just going to do some, it sounded like they were just going to do a few shows here and there, and they were going to kind of do something for the anniversary of Cool from the Wire, and it's kind of turned into that people are liking it, and they're really, I think they're, so fronted by Jason McMaster, Dirty Looks joined the roster of bands on the 2023 Monsters of Rock cruise and performed on Tuesday, May 2nd, 2023, and again on May 3rd, 2023. So they're still going, even though Henrik passed away in 2011. But they got the singer from Dangerous Toys, who is very good in his own right. But here is what I'm telling you. And, I'm holding this up for the camera. This is just one page of members that were in Dirty Looks.
Yeah. Wow.
And it goes on to page 2, and it's almost full down to the bottom there. So it sounds like it was basically a revolving door, and I had no idea about that until I started kind of looking this up. And I know quite a few of their albums. I had quite a few of their albums, but the main one, probably that everybody kind of knows, is Cool from the Wire. And it is fantastic from beginning to end. It is when it first came out, I remember the day I first heard it. I was in high school. It came out 87. So I'm walking in high school. I'm going up to our shop for shop class, and there's a long hallway. It kind of goes by our kitchen, and then it goes up, begins a hallway, and goes kind of upwards and whatever. And a friend of mine, Larry, has a boombox, and he's got this thing cranked, and it's Cool from the Wire. I'm like, who in the hell is that? And he goes, it's Dirty Looks. I go, golly, kind of sound like AC/DC. And he goes, yeah, everybody says that at first, but after you listen to them a little while, they don't, and which is true. I mean, I don't hear AC/DC anymore when I listen to it. But it is such a good album. There's really not a bad song on the album. It starts off with Cool from the Wire, which is just a balls to the walls rocker. And then it kicks into It's Not the Way You Rock. It's got a really cool drum at the beginning that starts off that song. Can't Take My Eyes Off of You. It's kind of a little slower, but it's still not a ballad per se. I may have sung this to my wife once upon a time outside the theater in my hometown. Then it kicks into Oh Ruby, which a lot of people really like. That was their big hit. Then followed up by Tokyo, which is very good. Wasting My Time. It's kind of a little twangy, but it's actually really catchy. Put a Spell on You is excellent. No Brains Child is excellent. Get It Right is excellent. It's a Bitch is excellent. Get Off is excellent. I mean, there's not a bad song on this album. So I just absolutely loved it. And then their second album came out. Not actually their second album, because they did have a couple before, but their first major album on a major label. And then they came out with Dirty Looks and kind of talked about how they did the producer thing that didn't turn out. But to me, the second album isn't near as good as the first one, but it's still pretty good. It's got a couple really catchy songs. Nobody Rides for Free. Slamming to the Big Beat. L.A. Anna's really good. Have Some Balls is good. Turn of the Screw is excellent. So, very good. And then, I did get into the Rumble Dog, like I said, but it sounded really, really pretty much like Dirty Looks, just a different name on the album. So that was good. And then they did one called Super Deluxe that I thought, some of the albums, the recordings are not that great. That's what I found when I listened to some of the other albums, is like they have the voice turned down too low to where the music is really pumping out there, but you can't hear the voice that well. Other than that, they're good albums. They're kind of one of those bands that they're always kind of good, kind of like AC/DC. I mean, there's never a real stinker that you just can't listen to. That's just all bad. I mean, they always have some good songs. So they did garner some fame with that first album, the first major label album, but they didn't. It kind of died out. I mean, they had a little bit of fame on the second album too. I mean, they had a little bit of traction, but it was just a little too late. 88, and it just, they're a band that I think could have been a lot bigger with their sound, because it was a good sound. Really, really good guitars and a unique singer. They just didn't quite grasp hold with everybody, and they still are one of my favorites, because that Cool from the Wire album is just so good. It's kind of like a Back in Black. It's just so good that it's hard to not love it. So if you get a chance, at least check out that album. Check out Cool from the Wire, because it is really, really good. And go from there. You form your own opinion of it. But in my opinion, that is definitely an album you should have in your repertoire. So
my number 4 is Rock's Gang. Rock's Gang was an American glam metal band formed in 1982, believe it or not, in St. Petersburg, Florida, fronted by Kevin Steele. Formed the band along with the guitarist Eric Carell. Band garnered record company attention in 1987 with its Love 'Em and Leave 'Em demo. The band recorded its debut album, Things You've Never Done Before, 1988 on Virgin Records, from which it released 2 singles, No Easy Way Out and Scratch My Back, with the lineup now consisting of Steele, Jeff Taylor Blanchard on guitar, Wade Hayes on guitar, Robbie Strychnine Strine on bass, and David James Blackshire on drums. It was produced by Beau Hill, who we were just talking about with Dirty Looks.
Yep.
Went on to sell 250,000 copies, so 250,000 copies. Maybe not such a hidden gem. They did have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 albums that I found, so 10. And I have, I'd say 5 or 6 of those. I'm only going to really talk about the one album, and that's Things You've Never Done Before. Came out in 1988. Going back to a little reading, but this version of the band broke up in 91. So different singers. They even went under a different name for a bit, the Mojo Gurus.
I gotta throw in one thing.
Okay.
I listened to some of the other Rock's Gang stuff, and I thought it was absolutely horrible.
Yeah.
Like the later stuff, thinking it went totally in a different direction.
Well, I can believe that, and I don't have a lot of the later stuff, but they have great album names like Bodacious Tatas that came out in 2001.
But it's completely different, Chris, if you listen to it. So just threw that out there for you.
Yeah. So, but Things You've Never Done Before, and they came out in 88. So
there's a theme.
They probably moved into a direction that they should have never did. I mean, hard to say. Yeah. But this album I'm going to talk about is 2 of the songs on that album, Ball and Chain and No Easy Way Out, were featured in a video game called Saints Row. I don't know if anybody ever plays video games, but just a little tidbit of trivia. Titles on the album: Scratch My Back, No Easy Way Out, Race with the Devil, Red Rose, Live Fast, Die Young, Too Cool for School, Ball and Chain, Fastest Gun in Town, 9 Lives, and it ends with Need Your Sex. Sex, drugs, rock and roll. There's a theme here.
Mm-hmm.
Highlights for me, Scratch My Back. It opens up with great song. Red Rose is a ballad. I do like ballads.
Cool
a lot of rock guys, ballads or whatever. Like you were saying, they come out with a rocker, and then a ballad is what really sells it down the road.
Get the women out there spending their money.
But 250,000 albums isn't anything to sneeze at, but it's not like it didn't blow up like Hysteria from Def Leppard or something like that.
Crazy, yeah.
Fastest Gun in Town, catchy song. 9 Lives, I just wrote down a lyric from that song, got 9 lives, using them all, ripping it up, and I'm having a ball. 9 lives, I'm a bad alley cat. I know what I want, and I know where it's at.
Yeah.
I mean.
It's catchy,
Yeah. So that's my number 4, Rocks Gang. Kept it somewhat brief, but they're one of my hidden gems.
All right. Thanks for keeping it brief. I will try to do the same. My number 4 is a band called Slave Raider. They're a Minneapolis band. They came out with 3 albums. They are called Take the World by Storm, What Do You Know About Rock and Roll, and Bigger, Badder, Bolder. So kind of formed in 85 from the Twin Cities. And then the people who followed them are called The Raid. So it's pretty cool. There's actually a guy on Facebook. He is selling tickets to a raid, Slave Raider Day. All the fans are going to meet up on a certain day, and they're hoping maybe some of the members will show up, and they have been known to get together from time to time and play 5, 6, 8 songs. Anyways, the lead singer Mike Findling performed under the persona Chainsaw Kane, wielding and operating a chainsaw on stage as part of his act. Due to his injury in his youth, he had a wandering eye that he felt was a distraction to the audience when he performed, so he began wearing an eye patch. And eye patches are often associated with pirates. The band took the name Slave Raider from the history of pirate lore. Other members of the band performed under the names Lance Sabin guitar, Nikki Wicked guitar, Letitia Ray bass, and The Rock on drums. In 1986, Slave Raider won all 4 heavy metal honors at the Minnesota Music Awards that year. That year, Prince performed at the ceremony, and Soul Asylum won for Best New Band. The band recorded 3 albums in the late 80s and early 90s, but were never able to make much of a dent in the glam metal scenes at the time. Due to the beginning of the grunge movement, that has been attributed to the influence of their fellow Minnesotans, the Replacements. The band was dropped by its record label following their 3rd album release in 1999 and broke up soon after that. Band members went on to do solo projects. Chainsaw Kane formed a band called UKI, which stands for Unstoppable Kamikaze Idiots. And they have the original lineup has periodically reunited since, and they performed 2 sold-out shows. Slave Raiders Make Some Noise, written by Slave Raider and Dee Nagel, appeared in 1988's License to Drive. And What Do You Know About Rock and Roll, off their 2nd album, was featured on the soundtrack 1989's A Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Dream Child. And the song Young Gun, written by Slave Raider members and performed by Slave Raider, appeared in the 1994 movie entitled The Paper, which was nominated for an Oscar. They're a Minnesota band. I've seen these guys several times. One time at a band called the Iron Horse. I think it was the Iron Horse. It was out in the middle of goddamn nowhere. And you could go in if you were 18, but in order to drink, you had to be 21. So they give you these wristbands, right? I went with my roommate who was 21, and they didn't sell anything but pop in there. So you bring in a bottle. Well, he brought in a couple bottles, and we all got drunk.
Sure.
We just sat at the table, and the Slave Raider played away that night. And anyways, these guys are really catchy. They're hard. Their albums are hard to find. I had to overpay for them to get them so that I could have them on my Apple Music. They do have one album out there on Apple Music called their second one, What Do You Know About Rock and Roll, is out there. So that I didn't have to buy that one, but I bought the first one. I had a bigger, better, bolder. The first one is much harder to find and costs a little more, but they are excellent. I think they would have been really big. I mean, they had some really good songs, and I'm just going to keep it brief that, Make Some Noise should have been bigger. Young Blood. There's just a large number of songs that I think could have been way bigger, and I wish they would have, because they're real good. So if you get a chance, take a listen to Slave Raider out of Minneapolis. Really good band. Check it out. Year 5.
All right, my last one, number 5, and save the best for last as far as I'm concerned, is the best album for sure. Vane has like 7 albums. They have a new one coming out May 1st of 2024 called Disintegrate Together. My band is Vane. I'm going to talk about this album, No Respect. Came out in 1989. Just a few quick things about them. This is from about their formation from Wikipedia. Again, I'm reading. But Davey Vane had initially begun his career as a record producer, producing Death Angel's debut album, The Ultraviolence. Sound anything like Death Angel? This doesn't to me. Before recording a demo with Metallica guitarist Kirk Hammett in 1986. I had no idea about that.
Cool.
After recording, Vane decided to form a band in the San Francisco Bay Area under his own moniker, adding bassist Ashley Mitchell, drummer Tom Ricard, and guitarist Dylan Nova and Danny West to the lineup. From 86 to 87, the band proceeded to play shows in San Francisco before playing regularly in Los Angeles, where they also opened for Guns N' Roses prior to their success, and were featured on the cover of Kerrang! Magazine after showcasing to major record labels, including Geffen Records. Vane signed with Island Records in 1988. And again, like I said, they had 7 albums, but No Respect is one of my favorite albums of all time. I just listened to it again recently, probably a month or so ago, but I listened to it, and then I listened to it again, right, back to back. I just think every song on it starts with a song called Secrets. I could highlight some things or songs, but I'm going to just go through each and every one because I can't just pick like a few highlights to me. Secrets, Beat the Bullet, Who's Watching You is the 3rd song on there, and then there's a song called 1,000 Degrees. The 5th song is a song called Aces. Great lyrics in that song. Holding all the aces in my hand, that's right. Holding all the aces, I'm a bad motherfucker tonight. Cut that out, but just that great song. Smoke and Shadows is a little slower song. I don't know how to really describe it. So when I got this album, that was a cassette, and that was the front side of the cassette. Flip it over, and it starts out with No Respect. The title of the album, the song, No Respect. Laws Against Love, down for the 3rd time. Icy, Without You, and finishes up with a song called Ready. Again, check this album out if you've never heard it. Give it a listen. I don't think it'll take the 2 or 3 or 4 listens, but listen to it 3 or 4 times before you say, I don't like it. Sometimes it takes a little bit to get into it, but just every song on it just rocks to me. I can't pick out any highlights because I just love it from start to finish. Some of their other albums are okay too. One of their more recent ones from 2011, which is 12 years ago, called Enough Rope, has what I think a lot of good songs on there. and I'm really excited about their new album coming out May 1st. They have a video for a song called Cold Like Snow, I think is the name of the song. You can find it on YouTube or sleazeRocks.com. Tied you over till May 1st. And when I get this album, I'll listen to it and maybe we'll do a review on our podcast here. But that's my number 5, Vane. I know I kept it really short.
I know you wanted to talk more about it. See, Vane to me, I can't get into him, but I'm gonna try again.
Yeah.
Because I know how much you like him. So I'm either missing something. For me, it's the voice.
Yeah.
He's got kind of a different voice.
For sure.
And I don't know. There's only one band that I absolutely hate, and that's Rush. And that's because of his voice. And I don't know if that's why it's throwing me off a little bit, but I'm willing to give it another try because you feel so strongly about it. I'm going to listen to that goddamn thing as I go to bed tonight.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to, it'll just permeate into my brain, and maybe I'll like it.
I don't hate Rush, but I understand where you're coming from.
Yep.
How about your last one? Your best for last?
Okay, yeah, this is one of my all-time favorite bands, and I honestly think they get boned all the time. It just drives me nuts because they have so many albums, and it wasn't a matter of timing either. They came out in '84, so and most of their albums came out before the grunge thing happened. So there's really no excuse. It's just I don't know if the record company didn't promote them correctly or what happened. Gene Simmons got involved with their third and fourth albums. I thought maybe he would promote them better, but they just kept getting raw into the deal, and they have all four. Their first 4 albums are all stellar. They're excellent. And the one they did released in 2011 called Oh Yeah is okay. I got to listen to that a little bit more. But the name of the band is called Black and Blue. They're an American glam band from Portland, Oregon. Current members are lead vocalist Jamie St. James, bassist Patrick Young, drummer Pete Holmes, and guitarist Brandon Cook and Doug Rappaport. Their best known song is Hold On to 18 from their first album in 1984. I think that's still their biggest song. They were actually formed in '81 by high school friends Jamie St. James and Tommy Thayer. Now, Tommy Thayer went on to his own fame. He when they kind of broke up, he went and he was a manager of some sort in Kiss. And then they ended up making him the full-time lead guitarist when Ace was gone again. Anywho, they moved to Los Angeles '82. They released their first album '84 with Hold On to 18 being the best song on the album. Well, I don't know if it's the best. It probably is the best song. Normally that might not be the case. And then their next 2 albums came out in '86. The next album came out in '86, which is called Nasty Nasty. And then in '88, they came out with In Heat. Something's wrong here. In Heat was out. So I think this is incorrect. So anyways, I'm just going to go through and kind of talk about their albums. Which Black and Blue originals came out in '84, August 2nd. Then it was Without Love that came out in '85. And the 2 that, and they were on Geffen Records, so, it wasn't like they were on some piece of crap record label, so I don't know why they didn't make it bigger. The next 2 albums are the ones that Gene Simmons was involved in, which is Nasty Nasty and In Heat. Hell Yeah came out in 2011, like I said. Came out on my birthday, matter of factly. in 2011 here in the States. Black and Blue, the first album peaked at 129. Nasty Nasty got up to 110, and In Heat got to 133. The only song that ever charted in the US out of any of these albums was Hold On to 18, and it peaked at number 50. But I'm telling you, every one of their albums, other than the one that came out in 2011, are excellent. They came out with a compilation album called The Ultimate Collection. Do yourself a favor, grab that, listen to it. There's no bad songs on it. But, I mean, from beginning to end on pretty much every album, extremely, extremely good. I think I would rank them. I think their first album's maybe still my favorite. Second album's still probably my second favorite. And then I think I would go to number 4, In Heat. I like that one better than Nasty Nasty, and then it would be Nasty Nasty, and then the last one would be the current release. But all 4 of the first 4 records, give them a try. Go out there, buy Black and Blue. It's really, really good rock and roll, and it is like hair band stuff. And I know you know them well enough to know that, yeah, they fit in that category.
Yeah, you can't find a lot of their stuff on Apple Music, is that right? Or
That is correct.
Okay.
I had to go out and buy it.
Yeah.
So basically, I think they may have one album, which is the first album, and then and then they have Oh Yeah on there, which is their 2011, and then they have that compilation. So they didn't have 3 of them, so I had to go out and buy those.
Yeah, you do got to do some looking for some things every now and then.
They sometimes when we say they're hidden gems, they are hidden gems. Like, I'm just gonna throw this up there real quick to end the show. There's a band called Tough Luck that came out with an album, and I had it on cassette, and I love it. And I never could find the CD, and I've been looking lately, and I saw it one time. It was $88. I should have bought it, because now it's $263. And I love them, but I don't love them that much.
You just have to have the memory in your head.
Yeah, I mean, I can get them on YouTube Music, and I can listen to their album on there, but it's just something about having the physical copy, which I want. But anyways, so some of the stuff is hard to find, and you may have to pay up for it, but it's worth it, because it's music, and music is life. Anyways, I'm going to wrap it up. We're going to wrap up this episode. Again, if you enjoyed our content, please like, subscribe, tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell your enemies, tell whoever you want to tell, because we need the subscribers, and we need to get up to a certain level before we can give you better content. This is Bergie, my co-host, and without further ado, we're just going to say, see you next time. We enjoyed it, and listen up, like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for watching.
Thank you so much for joining us today. We really hope you enjoyed our content. If you did, please like, subscribe, share, and tell your friends. We'd greatly appreciate it. Links to everything we discussed will be included in episode notes. Feel free to check those out as well. Until next time, stay golden, Pony Boy, and rock on.